viewers. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA and Jaipur Dialogue. And as always, as I request, please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Give your feedback, and we value your feedback because that's what makes us better. Today, I have a very special guest with me. For the purpose of full disclosure, Chris Majer is a good friend of mine for last 17 years, 2007 to be precise. And we have been, deeply involved in the work we do at Human Potential Project, of which Chris is the founder. He established this company, Chris Human Potential Project, but a little bit of introduction is essential. Chris is for the first time on our show today, and he has been a professional sportsman. He played rugby, and after his retirement, set up a company called Sports Mind, is to define what success means to a sports person. And he did phenomenal work there and then stepped into the corporate world. But prior to shifting to the corporate world, what performance means, what performance matters most, and performance means everything, there was very interesting discovery that he made, realization that he had, that commitment makes things happen. It's not the desire, intent, wishes, but when you make a commitment to something, then things happen. And Chris made that commitment. He's worked with Special Forces of the United States Army. He has worked with the US Army post-Vietnam fatigue, and he was written up by Newsweek magazine on this subject matter. And then he migrated to the corporate world, where Human Potential Project has done a phenomenal work on leadership, teamwork, team spirit, how to get things done. And in that process, today I wanted to talk to him because we have worked tremendously in the domain of leadership, because leadership makes things happen. Leaders, when they make a commitment, when they make a declaration, that's the intent for something to happen. So my theme of this subject matter is today, that is the decline in American leadership the cause for way the world is viewing America with cynicism and skepticism? Chris, shoot off, my friend.
Delicate little topic. Yeah. Well, I think we need to start with the premise here, because I'm not sure that I agree completely with the notion that there is a decline in American leadership. Right? So the dilemma we have is, as you well know, if we ask people what is leadership, you'll get as many different answers as you ask people, right? Which is why it's become traditionally difficult to think about how do you teach it. Well, we developed our own, and I won't go into all the details there. But the point of this is, leadership is all about creating possibilities and showing people how to mobilize action to bring them to life. Okay, and you're not really a leader if you have no followers. So what we've got in the country now, thanks to the, I would say, kind of misuse of technology, is a bunch of guys who, back in the old days, would stand on a street corner and shout crazy stuff, and everybody would just walk by and laugh at them. Now they've all got their own TikTok channels, and people think, oh, I better pay attention to what used to be thought of as a crazy person. That's not leadership. That's just making noise. So what we've got in our capital is a somewhat unique situation. We've faced this before. It just happens to be that it's our turn now, where we've got a cadre of people in the Congress who don't actually seem to believe in anything except stopping anything from happening. And that really is kind of the root of our problem. We've got, if you look at it from afar, we're the shining star on the planet right now in terms of our economy. People are looking to us to take leadership there. We're taking leadership with NATO. So I'm not sure that we can accept the opening premise that Americans' leadership is in decline. It's a little bit messy, I'll grant you, but that's one of the challenges of democracy. Democracy is messy. It takes time. It's often crazy making. And I think it was Churchill who said it. It's the worst form of government, except for all the others.
Yes, but as we both know, when there is a mess, as you very correctly said in Washington, president has been visited by, there was a write-up there saying turmoil in DC with what is happening with Joe Biden.
Hmm.
That eight somebody with to check the Parkinson, a doctor visited 8 times in the last as many months. So why isn't Biden recognizing the reality that age matters, whether we like it or not?
Well,
Why is, why,
I don't
why
think that's
is
what's
why
going
there's
on.
uncertainty being created in the entire atmosphere, which has led to the vitiated atmosphere, as you rightly said, the TikTok leadership.
Yeah,
Even Biden and Trump are on TikTok. Think about it.
yeah, yeah.
So the TikTok leadership is hurting the world because it's a serious issue. Uh, how does one address that? Who does one believe in?
Well,
Adam Schiff.
that's a big problem. See, that's
Yeah.
the problem is credibility. But let's go back to you, Sid, because here we're going to have to point the finger at us for the moment. So, okay, so there's been a doctor visiting the White House 8 times. Did anybody say he was? Did anybody say he was visiting with the president? No.
Yeah.
Right. So when pressed yesterday, the press secretary said, no, he's not been diagnosed. He's not being treated. He's not taking any medication. No, 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 no. The president doesn't have Parkinson's. Right. But notice all the noise that's still going on. For all we know, he was there visiting the first lady. We don't know. Right. But watch how people jump to conclusions and assumptions. So is Joe Biden old? Hell yes. He'll be the first one to tell you he's old. It's not like Donald Trump's much younger. Right. So we got an old guy who kind of dodders a little bit, but he's accomplished more as president than most anybody in modern times, versus another old guy who's a thief, a crook, a liar, wears diapers, right, and is a wannabe dictator. Gosh, that's a tough choice. I'll take the doddering old guy any day. Now, we could step back and go, this is a little bit embarrassing as a nation that we couldn't come up with two better choices. I'll be the first one to say that's true. But we're here. Now, you're a bit of a historian. You remember de Tocqueville? All right. He wrote a book about the Great American Experiment. One of the chapters in one of his books was why great men are not elected president. It's a recurring theme here.
That brings out a very interesting topic, because our work at Human Potential Project is all about performance and values.
Yes.
And we always say so in our work to companies that performance matters everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's what determines the quality of the company. You don't become good to great by becoming lazy. You become good to great by doing great stuff or attending to those things that matter.
Yes.
So that's the question that is important here. That despite everything else going on, are we taking care of the country as such? Chaos, messy, we all know that. We all know mistakes will happen. We all know crap happens all the time.
Yeah.
So the question is, how are the people dealing with it? And how is the political leadership, which stands in front of every other kind of leadership, which sets the agenda, is giving a very negative image? Whether it's Trump, whether you like Trump, whether you like Biden, hate both of them, it's a tragedy here that two 78-year-plus candidates are trying to lead a country that is so young and so vibrant by itself.
Well, okay. Well, I'll accept that premise, but I missed, what's the question?
The question is that how is it that people like you and not you and I, people are missing out on electing younger people to come up and lead the nation? Because as the saying goes, as we know from the sports analogy, we all have to retire.
Yes.
The sportsmen retire the fastest.
Yeah, that's right.
So
don't rub it in.
Yes. So the question is, there has to be something that inspires confidence. Today, the country is absolutely cutting across each other. And that's what is attractive.
The country, again, remember, the country's always been cutting across each other. That's the nature of what happens in a great melting pot. We're not a homogeneous ethnic religious group. So we've always had those kinds of things. They've just gotten more. I don't think they've even gotten more amplified as much as they get more attention now because of all the social media stuff. So I think it's very difficult for us to really discern, Are things any worse than they've ever been, or are they better than they've ever been? We've just got a bunch of crazy people shouting from the sidelines on both sides. I don't think we have any absolute way of telling. But if you look, the economy is in better shape than it's ever been. The stock market's at an all-time highs. What are the measures we want to look at for how's the country doing? By most of the standard measures, we're rocking. But the noise would cause you to not pay attention to any of that. Now, we've got some problems with the things that, price inflation and prices on things are just kind of out of control. But people forget, and unfortunately for Donald, the president's not a king, right? He doesn't have much authority, if any, over the economy, right? But we've got, business leaders who took advantage of the chaos of COVID to rack up a bunch of prices. Supply chain. Well, that got handled a couple of years ago. Why aren't things coming back down? Well, because we're making record. Oh, well, never mind then. We've got stuff that needs attention. That needs attention that the leadership, frankly, isn't putting any spotlight on because we're busy fighting all these crazy fires of, is the president got Parkinson's? Well, never mind if the president. Who cares, right? You can be president and have Parkinson's. Who cares? What matters is what are we doing about these economic issues that are driving people crazy in the face of the number one economy in the world.
One of the things that has consistently bothered me is given the fact that we focus a lot on performance as an element of a successful life. Mm-hmm. What is your take on the DEI initiative?
Oh boy. Well, in general, the concept makes, good sense. It's gotten a little flagellated, by people on both extremes. But if you look at diversity, well, who can argue with that? You want a diversity of opinions, of thoughts, of talents, all right, in any organization. That's how they get stronger. I don't want one kind of thought process. I don't want one kind of person on any team, right? We need a diversity of talents. We need a diversity of thoughts. If they come in a diversity of colors, great. Equity, I don't think anybody's going to argue, well, should people be treated fairly? Yes, and there's a difference between fair and equal, right? And include, why would we not want to include people? I mean, the on the face of it, the base definition is hard to argue with. Now, the people, the Ron DeSantis's of the world, oh no, they're trying to, it's like the thing of, well, we can't let all these immigrants in, they're taking our jobs, right? Well, explain to me, please, how they're doing that. You make it sound like they're going and holding people up and throwing them out of the Amazon truck and taking over the truck, and now I took your job. No, if immigrants, which is not the case, but hypothetically, if immigrants are getting paid to work, they didn't just show up and elbow somebody off the construction site, right? The company managers, leaders hired them, right? So if you want to be mad at somebody, it's the guy who decided he would hire those guys instead of those guys. We saw the film from Florida when they decided to push all the undocumented out of the state and everything ground to a big halt, right? Well, here's all these jobs. Where's all you complaining people? Oh, they're taking our jobs. Here you go. Get up on that roof and get to work. Get over there and start laying down some pavement. Didn't happen. All right? All a bunch of big blather and talk. So this is just stuff that we're using these dog whistles to get people who are kind of latently, for the most part, uneducated, unsophisticated, and living in fear, because that's what we've been doing around here, is trying to put fear into people for so long. As long as we're afraid of everybody else, we're not paying attention to what's going on up above that's causing all this mess.
Chris, I will get back on this subject matter once again, because I sometimes feel, so our work at various companies that we have done, we always focused on performance. We never focused on the skin color, nor did we focus on the gender part. So We always hire people who can do our job, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. And we want to hire the best that is available at a given price. Now, my thought process is, and this is a thought, it's not about right or left, Marxism, communism, or capitalism. Thought
Of,
process is
of a Buddhism.
Vibhutism. Yes, it is that at the end of the day, we all are different. This is what is important to bring it in the subject matter to discuss. Equality and equity are great words. Nobody can fight against that. But equality of what? When you were born, you were 7 pounds, I was 6 pounds, 7 pounds, all together. But we all emerged differently in every sense of the term. And when I don't say color of the skin, but in talent, ability, physicality, in every sense of the term, we became different. You became a rugby player.
Yep.
You, despite 6 feet 4 inch height, you did not become a basketball player. You would have been a shot guy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So the question here is that we all are born with different talents, different ability, different skill sets. A plumber has his own skill sets. You can't, and I, at least I can't say about you, I can't become a plumber despite all the education and wisdom and everything else. But I need a plumber.
Yes,
I
exactly.
damn well need a plumber, and I got to pay the price.
Let's pray. God save us from any homeowner who hires you and me as plumbers.
Exactly the point. So what I'm saying is that in the sense of equity and equality, if we do not accept individual differences, respect and accept individual differences, in my opinion, all talk of equity and equality, to use your favorite word, is a bullshit.
Yes.
What do you think?
Technical term that we use. Bullshit.
Right.
Right. See, but here's what we want to pay attention to. So, yes to what you said. When we talk about equity, at least in the highest order of the term, we're talking about equity of opportunity, not equity of outcome.
Okay.
Right? So that's the part that matters. In this country, in theory, what we provide people is equal opportunity to succeed. No guarantee that you're going to do it. That's where our individual capabilities, opportunities to learn, desire, and commitment, back to what we got started here, commitment show up. If you give 6 people the same opportunity, 2 of them will make it, 4 of them won't. You had your chance, right? So you got education, you got the opportunity to learn, and you make what you make out of it. That's the game. We don't ever want to get into equity of outcomes, and that's what I think people get confused about.
The outcome factor has become important.
Yeah.
We see, this is where I see a country this called America, where I had opined 12 years ago that this country need not be taken for granted by anyone, because we, America, are a huge country, very rich in resources, very rich in talent, and we have a reasonably great infrastructure in place. We are not a one-product country.
Yeah.
We have everything. That's why people call it a God-given country, right? We have bizarre weather factors, day in and day out, and we all live with that. We survive. Our instincts are very powerful. But what's happening right now is that sense of entitlement has crept in. And I had opined 12 years ago that America will rise so long as the political parties know that they continue to be in unison to do something, regardless of their differences and clashes, and the society doesn't become entitlement driven. And what we find here today is that every political party is making promises to people of a rosy future, which may or may not perhaps exist, because it's dependent on what the policy framework is. So that's where the challenge of DEI comes from, because performance has been given a go by. The good part of diversity, equity, inclusion, you cannot argue against that.
Yeah, exactly.
But what we have to remember, as you rightly said, how is it implemented? Who is taking advantage of that? This is the question that America needs to deal with. And we are both committed to that kind of an America, because we are both performance-driven people, even though on the political side, we may be on the two sides of the fence. That's a different matter. But we deal with each other. This is fascinating for viewers to know that Chris is a Democrat, left of center. I'm a Republican, right of center.
Mm-hmm.
But we have tremendous respect for each other because we accept each other as different
Yes.
individuals.
I
That's
can
important.
acknowledge and accept your choice to be on the wrong side of the fence.
Yeah, to each to his own self. Go ahead.
Right, but let's go back to your point, because to me,
Yeah.
this is a place where we've got a certain part of the media and the body politic that are always wanting to latch on to something to make a big deal out of nothing, right? So we have equity, DEI policies, but to my knowledge, I have to give you the caveat, to my knowledge, there's nobody out there trying to suggest that we need to guarantee outcomes to people, right? It's not happening. It doesn't make any sense, for one thing. And two, there's no infrastructure means by which you could do it. But you would think, listening to some, I'm not even going to call them pundits, some loudmouths, that, we're giving away this and we're giving away that and we're putting all these people above, these people. And it's not happening. It's a notional way of looking at how we're going to move the country forward, okay, to take advantage of what has been our historical strength, which is our diversity. Right? We're unlike any other country historically in the world. If you go to China, all the people are Chinese. If you go to India, all the people are Indians, right? If you come here, it's literally a melting pot.
But it's also a salad bowl. Now people say it is a salad bowl.
Same thing,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, same thing. But important part. Yeah, when you see in Paris, there will be Olympic Games right now. The U.S. contingent looks a truly diverse multinational contingent, always. That was the beauty of America. I totally acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge what P.J. O'Rourke once said. And I heard him in a speech in Manhattan. He said, this country will forever have a tough time, a rational policy for immigration and foreign policy, because we are all goddamn foreigners here. So, to your point,
Yes.
It is happening. Everything is about intent is one thing, the effect is another. And so the intent of DEI may be noble, but the politicians of all colors are using it for or against in a particular manner. So
True.
Now you may not know about schools now because your daughter has gone out of school. I may not know anything about schools, but what is happening in schools? Advanced classes, performances are being undermined. It's happening in school right now, where people are saying, oh, you don't have to pass to move to the next grade, next class. People are saying that,
Yeah, but hold on.
Go ahead.
That's true, but that's got nothing to do with DEI.
No, I'm saying the beginning point.
This is just
from the school.
This is just ridiculousness par excellence on the part of school boards and parents. We've lost sight of parenting, but that's a whole different conversation, right? But you're right.
That's a very important conversation. Parenting is a very important.
It is. Parenting, you're not supposed to be your kid's friend.
Right.
You're supposed to be their parent. You can be their friend after they get through school and out in life. But right now, your job is to get them through the process of learning to be self-sustaining and be an adult, take their place in society. And you don't do that by handing out participation trophies and passing along when they can't read. It's ridiculous.
Right.
And then we have to go to the teachers called, so you're getting paid here to produce a certain product, right? Speaking of performance, and that's not happening. In any other economic situation, there'd be consequences for that.
Right.
In education, there's not.
Or a sports, it is not. You perform or you lose. You win or you lose.
It's real simple.
Very simple. Very simple. I wanted to come back to another topic, another thought process in my mind is do you think the American concept is getting influenced by ideologies which are not typical American ideologies? Are we getting affected by the ideological tussle that is going on in politics right now, all over Europe, all over Asia, all over America? The ideological tussle that my way or highway. Do you see that creeping into the system?
Well, sure. It's again, in years gone by, we'd have these crazy people standing on soapboxes shouting stuff. If you back any time in the last 50 years walked down any street in America waving a Nazi flag, you'd have got the crap beat out of you. Never mind free speech. We had hundreds of thousands of people die fighting against
Correct.
that kind of crap. But now some nitwit around here thinks he's big hot stuff waving his Nazi flag. He'd have gotten soundly pounded. Now, I saw a film, I think it was from Nashville this last weekend on the 4th of July, of all things. We got a little neo-Nazi wannabe parade. Nobody bothered them at all. I'm sorry. Those guys should have got fire hosed, pummeled, their flags destroyed. My father fought in World War II, fought against that stuff. I'm named after two guys that got killed by the Germans.
3,526 days.
Thank you. My computer's nagging me. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So yeah, we're getting affected by it. And the problem with it is we're almost getting numb, I guess is the only way to say it. It's just so much of this stuff happening all the time, you get overwhelmed and people want to just go to bed and pull the covers over their head. We got craziness and craziness and craziness, and nobody seems to do anything about it or care anything about it.
This is interesting because I'll tell you why. You talked about the neo-Nazis moving along with their thing and nothing happened. At the same time, we had, on the other hand, the Palestinians shouting and waving the Palestinian flags all over the place, not a single US flag in it. So we are looking at extremes driving the middle.
Well, yeah, but again, that's the way it always works. I can speak from personal experience, okay? So when I was in college, I was very active in the anti-war movement, right? Yeah. And we took over campus. We did all the same things, only frankly at a much larger scale than what we just saw here. In fact, the people at the University of Washington, where I went to, I know some of the administrators, they're asking, what should we do about these protesters sitting here? I said, nothing, leave them alone. As long as they're not hurting anything or anyone, it's their right, let them. This is how they learn. When we did that, we had 50,000 people marching down freeways, took over the campus. And then this term ended and all the students went home. That was it. What we're watching here now is, and let me make my point, which we made one mistake in those days because we were young, we didn't know any better, which was we were opposed to the war, and then we took it out on the soldiers, right? We didn't make the distinction. Over here now, we've got the people don't make the distinction between Palestinians and Hamas, right? You can be in favor of Palestine, but not Hamas. That's the way I see it. Yes, the Palestinians are getting hosed in this whole process, thanks to Hamas. And I don't see a whole bunch of people waving Hamas flags as much as wanting something equitable to happen for the Palestinians, but those two get conflated, and the general person in Nebraska doesn't understand the difference between those two things.
Back to the knowledge part.
Exactly. Back to the education part. Exactly right.
Education part. Yeah, this is where the problem lies. Is the fact that we know little and we get swayed by emotions and by extremes.
Exactly.
And, when you do not understand the difference between Zionists and Jews, you have a problem.
Yes.
You have a problem when you don't make a distinction between Nazism and Germans.
Yes.
Then you have a problem.
Right. And
this is what is important.
And Hamas. Right.
Same thing. So back to the thing about, what my thought process is. Just hold on for a second. I think my guys, hold on for 29.54 because we're at 30. That's Yes. So the point here is I wanted to return to something very topic which is very dear to my heart, which I learned from you. The commitment makes things happen,
Ah,
right? So there is a brilliant white paper that Human Potential Project produced. Commitment based management. Commitment makes things happen. Wishes, intent, and desires don't mean anything,
no.
right? Tell us something about it. Tell the audience about it, that how you stumbled upon this entire idea and talked about the varieties of things about
Mhm.
teams, time. What is this all about?
Well, let's be clear. I can't claim to have been the inventor or creator of this notion about commitment. It's age-old stuff. I came across the way that I began to articulate it many, many years ago, and I'll spare you the whole story. But the way that we distilled it, and you know this because you were part of this whole thing, was commitment means doing whatever it takes, and I have to put in parentheses, inside the rules of the game, right, to accomplish your goals. Right? Now, the problem for most people is they confuse doing everything I know with whatever it takes. Those are often not the same thing. And the formula we use, and you have to add this one more thing to your conversation, just to be clear for everybody, is it's commitment plus action.
Right.
Yeah. It's the action that generates results. C plus A equals R. Commitment plus action, right? Too often people tend to think that it's excuses and reasons. Those don't generate any results. You spend a lot of time trafficking in excuses and reasons for why something didn't happen, as opposed to what is it you're going to do, one foot in front of the other till you get to your goal. And it's a little bit along the lines of some of the stuff we've been talking about, but as too many people have gotten used to getting participation trophies, we explain that no, yeah. Oh, well, you may have done what you thought was your best, but you still didn't achieve the result. I'm sorry, there's no prize. You've got to take consistent, coherent action to get to where you want to go. Absent that, talking about commitment is just that, talking. And if you look to people and they say, oh, well, I'm committed to losing weight. I said, well, looking at you, you got about 30 pounds to go. So I would have to say you're not committed to losing weight. You're committed to talking about losing weight, because that sounds good, right? But what actions are you taking? You're sitting here talking to me about your commitment to losing weight while you're eating a Big Mac and French fries. Those don't go together. So what we've learned over time and how we work with our clients is, let's get really clear about what's the outcome that we want, what's it going to take to get there, and then what are the actual steps and who's committed to taking those actions by when, because it doesn't matter if you don't have it time bound.
I think in my learning, I realized that the two words "by when" are remarkably simple but very determining factor in whatever you want to achieve. So, like the saying goes, to the viewers, I will say that whatever you try to do, set a time by when. And it's like something like talking about weight loss. You can lose 50 pounds of weight, but by when? It won't happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
It won't happen day after. So be realistic about that.
No,
But
no.
don't be so passive that you will say, I will lose it in 5 years. Then it doesn't mean anything either.
Well, here's how we work it in business. You know this because you've seen it so many times. And companies think they're all very efficient, and they're like, no, for the most part, you guys are hopelessly bogged down in what we call coordination waste.
Yeah.
Okay. In the modern era, in the industrial era, waste was simple in that you could see it, right? There's scrap laying around. There's inventory stacked up in a warehouse, right? You could see it. In this working world where we don't have so much of an industrial base, it's what we call the coordination economy. Waste is when people say they're going to do something and it doesn't get done on time. So that's why that by when is so effective. It's when, and that generates bad moods. It produces mistrust. It's a great big cascading downward spiral that all starts with the simple thing of do what you say you're going to do. And you go to a meeting, people will go, oh, that's a really good idea. Okay, we'll get right on it. And then as you said, I'll pipe up and I go, By when? And they all look at me like they're offended, like, well, I said I'd get it done. I don't doubt that. I heard you. By when? And as soon as you start to pin people down for getting things done, that gets kind of warbly in there. But I explained to them, look, if you say to me, I'll get it done as soon as possible, okay? This is everybody's favorite thing. I'll ASAP. Okay, good. Now, if you said that to me, my assumption is as soon as possible, it means you're going to go get on it right after we're out of this meeting. To you, it means pretty much the opposite. Right? It means as soon as possible. I've got 10 things on my priority list. You just gave me number 11. You're lucky that I'm putting it on the stack, but it's at the bottom. So I'm going to go off based on an assumption that you're going to have this done sometime in the next 24 hours. You're thinking I'll get to this sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Obviously, there's a problem there, right? And that's why it's essential that you have to take that step, particularly in an environment where you've got a bunch of different people from different entities, slightly different work practices and priorities. This is where chaos erupts, is if you don't bring that level of precision to your request management, promise management.
Yeah, that's very, very important. The other part which I wanted to say, to share your thoughts about the 6 ways we communicate with each other, the declaration.
The basic linguistic moves. Yes.
The basic linguistic mood about leadership. This is where my thought process is all about.
Yeah.
Going back to leadership, what are those linguistic format in which you and I and everybody else communicates, and why it is critical for leadership?
Well, yeah, this is critical. And it's interesting because we can tie this back to some of the stuff we've been saying earlier. So one of the things that, and this was not me, people figured out, I mean, this is philosophers now, is that the quick history lesson. So if you look at human beings, right? 100, 200, 300,000 years ago, we lived in little bands, and we were essentially, if we weren't careful, snacks for saber-toothed tigers, right? Now, in a historical blink of an eye, we've become the dominant species on the planet. And you have to step back and go, how'd we do that? We're not bigger. We're not faster. We don't have bigger claws or teeth or thing than the other critters. But we have one thing that they don't, and that's a capacity for language. Now, when I say language, I don't mean French or Hindi or any particular language, but the phenomenon of language. And what makes a language is it has six basic moves in it, right? They are, number one is declarations. Right? There's big declarations. We'll put a man on the moon and bring him back safely in the next 10 years. That's a declaration. I'm going to go to Starbucks. That's a declaration. They don't have to be monumental. We make them all the time. And the thing is, declarations set things into action. Without a declaration, nothing much happens, right? So we could sit around and until somebody says, I'm going to Starbucks, nobody's going to Starbucks. And you don't have to say it out loud. You can declare it to yourself, right? Then there's assertions, these things that people tend to think of as facts. And this is where we need to be careful, because this really ties into the current kind of noise, in the body politic, is people don't make the distinction between assertions, which are, quote, matters of fact, and for something to be a fact, to be an assertion, it has to pass what we call the universal observer test. And that means that anybody on the planet, no matter what culture, language, would look at it and go, yes, that's true. 2 and 2 is 4. Yes. The sky is blue. Yes. Water's wet. Rocks are hard. Grass is green. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. When you get to it, there's not a whole lot that you can assert about things and get that past the universal observer test. Then there's assessments, which is the vast bulk of human communication, right? My thoughts, my opinions, my point of view, my feelings, my beliefs, etc. Where we get in trouble is we confuse assertions and assessments. And that's what the big noise in the body politic is right now. People think, well, I believe, and that's nice, but your beliefs are just assessments, right? All a belief is a thought that you keep recurringly having. That you believe it doesn't mean it's true. and that people have a tough time getting that, right? So, when you see all this stuff on TikTok or Instagram or even on the news, you're like, oh, it's like, well, hold on, let's look and see. And if you start taking some of this apart, 99% of what passes for the news is assessments, not assertions. If you take all the assessments out of the news is actually pretty boring, fire, truck, boom, boom, boom. But it's we're addicted to the drama of it. Oh, it was terrible. It was a catastrophe. It was a house caught on fire. There's 400 billion houses in the country. We lost one. Big deal. So, and then we have the things that produce action, which are requests, offers, and promises, right? So if you learn to master and really make the clarity about what's going on around you, you can see an elegant simplicity while everybody else is just caught up in chaos. And that's one of the fundamental things that we teach to all of our clients.
Declaration, intent, assertion, request, offer, and promise. And this happens in everywhere, every universe.
Anytime a human being opens his or her mouth, they're making one of those moves.
One of those.
Period. End of story. And if you don't have those 6 things, those 6 moves, it's not a language. You're just making noise.
So would it be fair to say, that most of us live in our own little world of assessments?
Why, yes, it's not only fair, it's absolutely true. Yes. And we refuse to get that it's just assessments. We act like, the dilemma is human beings are the only creatures on the planet that are dumb enough to fight and die over the truth.
Which I always say, my phrase is, I always say that the smart people make dumb mistakes. Smarter people make even dumber mistakes.
Dumber mistakes, That's right. It's the way that it is. No other creature's that stupid. It's, you just believe something. It's your truth. It's not a universal truth. That's the problem. There's 3 types of truth. There's, THE truth, which is the stuff of religion and philosophy, right? God, Allah, whatever, that kind of truth. Then there's the truth, which is 2 and 2 is 4, like we said. And then the bulk of stuff is my truth, my thoughts, my feelings. And we confuse those things. And as I said, we will fight and die over my truth versus your truth. And some, uninvolved observer would stand back and go, that's phenomenally stupid. These people would expend so much energy and effort and kill each other over this ephemeral version of truth.
You talked about religion and philosophy, and what I found was that, I've written a chapter in a book that is coming out soon, and we'll talk about that some of the time, in which I have opined my observation, my truth, if I may say so, is the fact that religion, the way it is being practiced, is a cause of majority of the conflicts around the world. Would you agree with that?
It's very hard to argue with that. Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. In fact, it's historically been the cause of more havoc and chaos and suffering has been foisted on humanity as a result of religion and differing religious views than anything else in human history, by far.
Do you think then, in that case, that as science and technology evolves, as knowledge and information evolves, for example, we know now that the Earth is not flat.
Oh, now well, you can't convince some people of that.
Some people, yes. Now we know that men are responsible for the gender determination of a child. We know that thunder and lightning doesn't happen because God suddenly chose to be angry. Do you think science, the evolution of science and technology as it is happening, and the dissemination of information the way it is happening, will religion and science clash, or has it always been a clash between religion and science?
Well, that's a good question. I think if you look at the historical trends, there's always been a little resistance from the quote extremists in any religion about science, because it tends to take away the mystery, Oh, it wasn't that God was angry. There was all these literal forces that we can prove and consistently demonstrate that cause thunder and lightning. It had nothing to do with your gods being angry.
Right.
Well, if I'm the medicine man and, that's where I got my little bit of power, I'm not happy about that. So, we watched historically lots of, quote, men of science have been persecuted by religious people for debunking some of their favorite religious myths and beliefs. Process continues to this very day as we get down to the very nature, of the universe itself. And, it's kind of preposterous to me that we can now, with clear evidence, demonstrate, the galaxy is billions and billions of years old. And there's still some people, well, no, it's only been around here for 4,000 years, and dinosaurs and people used to frolic together. Yeah, no, not so much. But there's a moment in time where we've got to decide as a society, which of these courses are we going to be steering the country by, right? We can't have, that's why we have a separation of church and state in this country. We can't have the religious, if you want to call them nutballs or whatever, making those important kinds of decisions based on myth and fantasy. We've got, if the two are in opposite camps and we have to choose, the only rational choice is science.
The rational choice is science, but emotion drives everything else, right?
That's true. That's true.
So,
and therein lies the rub.
Therein lies the rub. So emotion, religion is remarkably emotional. We all are emotional about our belief systems. And, but then here comes another issue, which is learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of our favorite subject matters.
Yes, indeed, do.
Yeah, because the moment you stop learning, you are dead. You are gone. You don't matter anymore after that.
Mm-hmm.
But majority of the people do not learn. So it seems to me, because we live in our own cocoon and we don't want to get out of that. How will we at Human Potential Project spread the message of learning, learn from each other? Naturally tan and white can go together.
Well, you're hitting on two interestingly and different topics here. So learning, for the most part, the problem with, quote, learning is the way we go about it. So people tend to think, I went to school, I learned, and I've done it, that's all I need. And unfortunately, it's not. Now, there was a moment in time, but it was hundreds of years ago, where you could learn everything you needed to know to be successful in life by the time you were about 12 years old. Those days are long, 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 long gone. Right? And if you look at things, well, it doesn't take much education to be a farmer. You go, bullshit. If you look at all the chemistry and all the stuff and the engineering and, all the equipment and stuff to effectively be a farmer, you need to be a constant learner. And if you want to be on top of anything, or even a vital participant, you need to be a constant learner. And the challenge is learning isn't about school. And as we found out early on, working with athletes, learning has to be seen as the development of new competence, a new capacity for action, right? It isn't about understanding something. That's the booby prize, right? So as we say, our product that we traffic in is what we call embodied competence. Embodied means you can take the new action without having to stop, think about it, look it up in a book. Competence is simply the capacity to consistently produce the desired result. There's only one way you develop embodied competence, one way, and that's practice. And here's the part that people really don't want to wrap their heads around. The reason for that is that while your mind understands things, and understanding can occur in an instant. We've all had that moment. Oh, bing, the light went on. Oh, now I understand it. Great. No amount of understanding ever produced competence, because the mind understands, but it's the body that learns, and the body only learns one way, and that's through practice. And it doesn't matter what it is we're talking about. In sports, it was easy to see, right? Because if you want to learn to get better, that's my favorite simple analogy. You're kind of a golfer. If you want to get better at golf, like me, I'm kind of a golfer. If you want to get better at golf, and I ask people, oh, okay, you want to get better at golf? What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go to the range and practice. Okay, good. Now, here's why that's not going to help you much. You've already said you're not particularly good. So why would you go and practice not being good? Well, no, you won't get better. I mean, you might, but it'll be more by accident than design. If you're really committed, what you're going to do is you're going to go hire a coach. Right? Now, we've all been there. You go to the range and the coach is looking and says, all right, let me see you take a few swings. So you do that. And she says, okay, now just change your grip like this and put your shoulders back and move your feet a little bit. What happens to those next few shots?
The most
crap.
difficult shots.
They're crap, right? Yeah. And this is why most adults never learn anything. We try something new. The first few times it doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't work. It's new. You don't know how to do it. The new grip, the new stance is uncomfortable. And we refuse to let ourselves be uncomfortable. And that's why we don't learn anything. We don't want to have uncomfortable thoughts. We don't want to have uncomfortable body postures. And so if the coach wasn't right there standing over you, what would you do? You would do what 99% of the population does. Go back to doing it the old way because that was more comfortable. It is that reluctance to be uncomfortable that keeps most people from learning anything. And as I said, the physical things, that's an easy way to see it, but it's the same thing with thinking, right? I want to entertain a new uncomfortable thought. Oh, well, that runs contrary to all of my beliefs. Well, beliefs are just thoughts that you keep thinking. There's no difference. And until we can get the people to be used to the notion that, of course, you're going to be uncomfortable. That's how you learn. There's no learning in your comfort zone.
That's why it is called comfort zone.
Very good. Yeah.
Nobody wants to get out of it.
Nobody wants to get out of it.
Nobody wants to confront the truth, the
Yeah.
reality as it is. Like you got to do it right.
Yes.
And my favorite example is Michael Jordan being asked, you practice free throws 1,000 times, but he also made a very important reference. You have to practice it right.
Yes.
Otherwise, you are doing the wrong practice and
Exactly.
you keep wondering why the hell it is not happening, right?
Exactly right.
Because you were doing it wrongly. So
Right.
it doesn't matter if
I'd
you
say
did.
that's why trying to teach yourself is a fool's errand.
Right. There's a fool's errand. The last thought that I wanted to ask you was, your experience with Army and the Special Forces. You have said it so beautifully in the book. I have read the book for sure, and thank you for acknowledging me in your book.
Mm-hmm.
But then the point is, what was that turning point in those learning experiences? Because those people are highly trained people.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Human Potential Project presentation and participation make that quantitative and qualitative shift in their learning?
Well, there's they live in a different world. So let's start with that premise, and we'll talk about the special forces. All right. So these are the elite soldiers, operators, whatever term they call themselves, operators.
Right.
In the world.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. And when we got there, they looked at us like they do everybody else. Oh, great. Some more old guys who are going to try and tell us to do. So we got the usual kind of cold shoulder. And what we knew was we were not going to get anywhere with them until we showed them that we could do things that they do, and in some cases do them better. So in those days, we were younger, much more fit. I had some guys who were very experienced masters class triathletes, boom, 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 in addition to all of the other stuff we did. So we got to meet some of these guys, and they kind of thought they were going to pull one on us. And they said, well, okay, why don't you come for a little run with us, right? So I could see where this was going. So I took a couple of my guys with me, and the commander and I were lagging behind the younger guys. And I just said, well, this will be just fine. He's like, oh, I'm a little worried that they might run your guys into the ground. I said, no, don't worry about that so much. So he and I took a short course, and we got back to the finish, and About 5-10 minutes later, the first guy across the line was one of my guys. And the second guy across the line was one of my guys. And then here come the special forces guys, all gasping and wheezing, right? So we were able to get their attention by living in their world, doing things with them, doing things that they could understand. Then they would say, oh, okay, now maybe we'll listen to some other stuff that you have to say. So it's all about getting their attention, getting credibility. When we go in the corporate world, we have a record of success that nobody can touch. So you can't argue with, do these guys know what they're doing? We're not theoreticians. We don't do case studies, right? We work with you to produce real life results, and the results are outstanding compared to anything else you've ever seen. So we have an instant kind of credibility in those cases. That's what it takes to get people to at least be willing to listen. And then everything we do it in a slightly different way. It's engaging, it's exciting, it causes them to think in ways they haven't before, and we do it in an environment where it's safe and they love it.
Yes, that's very, very important. I have experienced that, so I've seen the teamwork, the whole 99 yards, if I may say so, of the brilliance that impact happens. Like for example, the Itron example, where they were not been winning a contract for as many years, and choosing the project management techniques that they learned from us, they won the award first time, and they said so in their compliment they paid to us. So one final question before we close the program today. Given the fact that we focus on performance, given the fact that we know learning happens only when you imbibe that, embody the competence, how does, in my opinion, and I'm here wanting to learn from you, does the avowed practice of DEI, the way it is done, as I always say, helping or not helping?
Well, I don't frankly think that's a useful question, because it's practiced by whom? It depends on who's doing it, right? We're back to the notion of it. The theory is unimpeachable. But if you say, well, how are they doing it in, this company or this agency versus that one? Who can say? So it's too much of a generality.
My question is based on certain facts that came out in the media. Now, whether they are facts or opinions, we do not know that yet.
Yes.
But many corporations began to say that their performance dipped because they began to focus on DEI way too much. That's the era where, because you are as big, as strong, or as weak as your weakest link. That's
but let's take a look at that, because to some extent that may just be an excuse, right?
Okay.
So when you say we're focusing on DEI too much, what does that mean? I mean, think about it. What does that mean? So you're focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, as opposed to what? Doing the business of the company? Well, if you actually did that, took your attention off the proverbial ball, then that's poor leadership. It's got nothing to do with DEI. That's called bad leadership. If you're saying to me, well, for the sake of diversity, we brought in a bunch of people who weren't qualified, but they met our diversity goals, then that's another shame on you, right? That's not a focus on diversity. That's just trying to look good. If you want real diversity, we take diversity of opinions, and we don't care what color it comes in, right? If you're trying to fill quotas, that's not diversity. That's just box checking and social manipulation. That's not what it's all about.
Precisely the point. And this is where we have often talked about it. The majority of the companies, corporations run by governments and bureaucracies, they end up doing the checking the boxes.
Yeah.
And that is the principal reason why the good intention designs fall flat.
Well, it's a reason, yes, right?
It's a reason, yeah. That's the beginning of a big reason for that. Then we begin to do what you said earlier on. We justify even our wrong steps taken.
Right. And, the dilemma we've got is we've got people in leadership positions or managerial positions who are now handed these new mandates. This is something they're not used to doing. They don't know what they flop around, and pretty soon we find that they're just kind of filling boxes as opposed to doing the hard work of finding real diverse talent. And you could make the case, well, we don't have that big of a body to choose from, and la 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 la. No, you're just being lazy, and you need to find new ways of doing it. There's examples of, we need to hire more. I'm making this up now. More Black attorneys. Okay, well, how are you going to find them? Well, we put an article, we put an ad in the Harvard, Law Review. Okay, and you didn't get any responses? Oh, what a shock. How about if you figure out that then in every large community, there's an organization of Black attorneys. Go to one of their meetings, get present there. That's how you find out where they are and what they're doing. Not, you could, that's the old way of doing things, is we put an ad in the paper. Well, that just presupposes that the people that you're after read those kinds of ads. For the most part, they don't. You need to go where they are, not where you are.
Wonderful conversation, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for joining today. And I would like to have more focused conversation on elements that can impact people's lives from the values that we talk about so very often. So viewers, look up Human Potential Project. HP2 online is an online version as well. We have become technology driven, digitized, not only manual, but digitized as well.
Yes.
So look it up. And Chris has written a book. That's what I was looking for the book to show it to you. And if you have, please show it here, Chris.
Well, let's see. I don't think I have one handy, but it's called The Power to Transform.
Power to Transform. And Power to Transform.
I take it back. I do have one handy. Ta-da!
Yes, The Power to Transform, this book. You look it up, and it is done. Chris has promised this, that you can transform yourself in 90 days. There is a plan there to transform yourself from where you are to where you want to be, provided you make a commitment to do so.
There you go.
Not a holy desire, but a commitment to do so. Hard commitment to do so. Thank you, Chris.
So next time we'll take people through the basic tenets of the book, because it's focused on changing their lives.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, viewers, for joining today. Please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Give your feedback on everything that we do. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, sir.